Have you ever wanted to have superpowers? I'm sorry, stupid question. Of course you've always wanted to have superpowers. Because people with superpowers are super cool. And me, I'm an actual superhero. What? You don't believe me? The cape doesn't have you convinced? Ah, well, then I'm gonna abandon the cape because we're living in Arizona. And it is too hot for capes. You know, Edna talks about how they get caught up in like various things and end up killing people, but for me it's just the heat factor that's just intolerable. So superheroes. Ever since I was a kid, I saw shows having to do with various kinds of superheroes, you know, like Superman, Teen Titans, all sorts of various superhero things that I kind of got into when I was young. And from a very young age, I created this superhero sona, and I know because I have records of it, of like my elementary school self writing about my superhero, whose name was Beast Girl. I thought that, you know, there's a copyright on Beast Boy, but I haven't ever heard of a Beast Girl, so that must be up for grabs, so I'm just going to take that. That sounds like a cool thing, and I really liked animals at the time, so, you know, being able to turn into animals to me seemed pretty darn cool. And not only did I create the superhero Beast Girl, but I created this supervillain, this super evil, villainous creature person whose name was Everall. Everall, for all those wondering, is a contraction of evil for all. And to this day, I'm still kind of proud of my little self for coming up with that, but also kind of embarrassed. But, yeah, so when I was a little kid, I had Beast Girl, the animal-loving hero that could, like, turn into animals and talk to animals, all this, you know, typical Disney princess stuff, kind of. And Everall, whose powers were, from what I remember, just creating machines of different kinds that could, like, trap Beast Girl and, you know, do horrible things to her and her friends and whatever. But Beast Girl would always come in and save the day. Well, when I got to middle school, I stopped, you know, with the whole, like, superhero thing. Like, obviously, when you get to middle school, people aren't going to just go along with, oh yeah, let's play superheroes anymore. So I got into middle school, and the whole superhero thing died down for me. I very much came back to a reality where I had no superpowers. I couldn't just, you know, talk to animals or even build, like, super cool machines like Everall could. I was just a kid. And got to high school and went to my first PE class of high school and was still in that kind of, like, downer middle school mindset sort of thing. And, you know, I start getting dressed, I pull on my green gym shoes and everything, and I go out. It had just rained the day before, and it was, like, a pretty nice day out that day, but all I could think of was the rain, like the moody person that I am. So anyways, I came out into the sun, and then they're like, okay, well, the field's still wet, so you guys are all going to be playing indoors today. And I had a small group that I would, like, play games with outdoors, because this was the first time we were ever indoors. And I was like, okay, I'll go with them, we'll play some basketball, it'll be fun. So we get our stuff out. I'm telling you, my mind is miles away from the superheroes of yesteryear. And we start playing basketball. Someone gets the ball, they're dribbling, they're going, they see me open, they pass me the ball, I do a few dribbles, and I shoot, and I score, and it's awesome, and everyone's like, yeah! And we line up, and I see that some of the people on the other team are giving me, like, these funny looks. They're, like, looking at me a bit weird. One of them, who had been guarding me, was kind of, like, looking at their hand. They were like, what? And I'm like, yeah, you know, it's fine, we'll just keep going. And so we go again, and I noticed that, like, no one is guarding me, and the person that's guarding me is, like, over to the side a little bit, like, looking at me, like, looking like at my face and like up. And I'm like, hey, you're gonna get on me or what? Like, you're gonna come defend? And they're just, looking at me, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And then, I get past the ball, I start dribbling, and now all of a sudden, not just that one person is looking at me, but like everyone is looking at me. And so now I have to figure out what's going on. So I stop dribbling the ball, I hold it, and I'm like, what? Like, what's wrong? Is my shoe untied? Is, like, something wrong? And they're just like, your hair. And my hair, apparently, according to what they said, because there's no mirrors, was, like, sticking up into the air. And I'm like, what? I don't see anything wrong. And they're like, look at your hair. And I'm like, okay. And then someone comes over and they're like, that guy says that you shocked him. And I'm like, what? I shocked him? How would that have worked? Like, I can't shock, and I like reach out to touch them. I can't shock people. I guess I can shock people. And this wasn't like a tiny spark. This was like a visible stream of light from like my finger to their arm. And they just kind of yelped and jumped back. And I'm just like, huh, well, that's interesting. And they're like, your hair's back to normal. And I'm like, huh, that's interesting. And so then I take the ball that I still have in my hand and I bounce it again. And then they just, you see the eyes start going up, and I'm like, oh yeah, now I know how this works. And I just start going, and everyone's like, oh my god, this is so cool, but so scary. Because all of a sudden I can just shock people. And so I'm like, okay, it's fine, guys. I won't touch you guys. It'll be fine. We'll just play, no contact sport. It'll be great. So, like, we go for all this time, and class ends, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have, like, a low-key superpower. This is pretty epic. And a few weeks pass. It fades a little bit in my memory. But then we come to the next gym day. And, now I remember, now that they mentioned that we're going to be indoors, I'm like, oh yeah, I have superpowers. That's so cool. Anyway, so I go, and I'm like, alrighty, and I'm like, alright, we're gonna do this. And so I take a basketball, and I go over to some people who didn't see me that day, and I'm like, hey, I can control electricity. And they're like, what? And I'm like, watch. And so I start bouncing the basketball, and again, you just see the eyes just going like, and I'm just over here like, yeah, I've got the power. And then one person who's pretty brave is like, could you, can you shock people? And I'm like, yeah, I can. And they're like, what the? And it's just a small crowd starts gathering around. I swear, it's exactly like something out of a superhero movie where like the teenager is just learning their powers, except I was so dumb that I didn't hide it from anyone and instead just went and talked about it to everyone. But I've got my electricity, I've got my like giant hair apparently, and we go over to these bleachers because they have like this little metallic aspect to them. So we go over, and everyone's all crowded around, and I shock the bleachers, and you can just see, again, that bolt of electricity, and you can hear the little crackle as, like, this tiny bit of lightning, pretty much, is discharged into the machinery. And everyone's just like, whoa! And I'm just like, yeah, I'm the coolest person ever. And, yeah, so it was pretty cool at first, getting everyone together, having the coolest superpower in town. But eventually I started to deal with some of those, responsibilities and such, some of the downsides of being a superhero, because, people don't want to play with someone who can shock them just by touching them. People don't want to, like, interact with that. They'd rather play with the people that, you know, are normal. And so I quickly found myself not with the group that I had been playing basketball with. And, you know, while I could cheer myself up by going over and shocking the metal, like, every so often when I felt a little down, it was still wearing on me. So one day when we went to gym, I was like, you know, I just wish that this electricity thing wouldn't happen anymore. Like, it doesn't seem all that great. And for that day, I was still shocking things left and right, you know, which made me be like, yeah, you know, maybe I can deal with it. It's not that bad. But the next day, when we also had the gym, I went in and all of a sudden it was gone, like completely gone. And I'm not sure why. I think scientifically speaking, something about the humidity or something, but for whatever reason, I could no longer shock people, which was simultaneously good because I could, you know, play with my friends and play basketball and stuff. But it was also this, like, weird sense of loss. I mean, it was, like, the dumbest superpower I've ever, like, that's ever been created. Like, the ability to give a minute shock to someone. Like, that's gonna come in handy all of, like, 0 times. But losing that was, for some reason, really impacted me and really made me think, like, man, you know, whenever those superheroes lose their powers in movies, yeah, it stings. A lot more than touching that metal stung. It stings. But, you know, I went on with my life. I got over it. And, you know, I wouldn't even be remembering it right now. But there's lightning outside, and thunder, and we're learning about static in physics class. So I just thought that I should tell you guys this shockingly good story and tell you that if you ever get a minor superpower, like being able to shock things, or I don't know, being able to, like, run super fast for a second, or whatever supernatural but actually pretty average experience you have, I just savor it. Because we all have that little superhero inside of us, and sometimes it's really cool when you can just experience that and be that for a little bit. So yeah, that's it. See you guys later. Let me know who your favorite superhero is down in the comments below. I will tell you if they are good or bad, or if I don't know who they are, and it'll be fun and also controversial. But yeah, hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you later.